What is happening, Mark? How you doing today, brother?
Oh, is it BS Friday already, Dave?
It is BS Friday. It is for sure. It's almost Saturday, which means Sunday, and then we're back at it Monday. So you know how it goes.
So coffee tomorrow, and welcome back, Dave.
Yeah.
You had a whirlwind worldwide tour, and here we are on Friday, and we got a good show coming up, brother.
Man, we have a great show coming up today. It's always fun to talk about people that are taking it to the next level, not just in their building practices, but in their educational side of it as well. So looking forward to this conversation for sure. Where are you sitting at today, brother?
Just sitting in the dining room. I've got everything spread out, Dave. Here's a little sneak peek. Ready? August,
hold on.
September, October, November, December, and come on, work with me, paper. January. Dave, we've got this whole year booked and we're getting ready for January, everybody. Could you believe it?
You know what? It is absolutely amazing how fast the year is going and how many people are excited to come on the show. We're having a lot of fun with it, bringing it to you. And hey, we're having a lot of fun traveling too. This is trade show season coming up. We're going to be all over the place. I know Mark, Mark typically doesn't leave his kitchen, but you might end up seeing him in some places while we're going about. And I might be back in Germany next month.
What?
Yep, Germany and then Japan.
You know, the good thing about next month, Dave, is you'll have to do some research because Oktoberfest requires a great deal of research, right? Get back to the natural greens and the beauty of pure artesian spring water.
I will tell you now, the only thing you need to plan for at Oktoberfest in Munich or München, if you're from Germany, is what is the best time to get in line for the urinals. Period. That's the only thing you need to know there, boy, because the lines are outrageous.
Get me some pretzels, get me some bratwurst, get me some sauerkraut, get me some mustard, and make sure I have Gatorades for after.
Absolutely. That is 100% it. All right, Mark. So we got a big show today. We got all kinds of things going on. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So get your tweets on. And if you're not following us on YouTube and LinkedIn, you need to follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn. We're tired of asking at this point.
But we love to invite you. So should we get into surprises? Are you ready?
Yeah. Let's hop into this and let's get this going. We got a big show for you today.
Okay, surprises. Let's use the magic wand and let's bring someone in to do a surprise introduction for a presenter today. Dave, who are we bringing in?
Oh my goodness. It's no stranger to danger. He's typically on a job site. He's all over the place. He is a leader in the industry when it comes to air barriers and passive house building. He's been on the show many times before. I don't really know how tall he is, but I think he's the same height as me. So let's bring him on. What's happening, Sean?
One day, Dave, we will measure ourselves up and we will figure that out. But I'm pretty sure we're the same height. Maybe my hair gives me that extra little inch. Maybe that's a little tease there. So all good. Yeah. Welcome, everybody. It is BS Friday. Happy to join you from one of our projects. And you guys have another all-star coming to the screen today. He is a husband. He is a father of 3 really cute kids. But he's also done some things in his career that sets him pretty high up amongst the builders, especially here in Vancouver. He and his team many years ago actually built the first certified passive house daycare, and lots of amazing details are put into that. Then I got to work with him and his team, and side by side, Chris and I lifted a lot of ice as we did the Icebox Challenge exhibit here in Vancouver. And if you know, like that project started off here in Vancouver and it traveled all across North America. So Chris was part of that team. And now with his partners with BCollective, they are doing some amazing high performance projects. And in the last couple of years, him and his team have worked on this program called Boss. And I'm not going to get into it because I want Chris to dive into it, but he is a boss. We're going to talk about Boss. So let's get into it. Mr. Chris Hill, come join the show.
Excellent. Hey, what's happening, Chris? Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Have you guys asked Sean about his goaltending skills?
You're a hockey player, Sean.
Chris is really good at hockey. He's a great defenseman. Let's just leave it at that.
A little hockey chatter. Good. I love a little hockey chatter.
Yeah.
A good defensive makes the goalie look good, right? And maybe someone gets to go home with the chain. So that's what teammates are about.
When we get together, both of my daughters play competitive ice hockey.
Uh-oh.
In fact, we just signed them up at the Lemieux Center, which is the Baby Penguins team. They got to try out, of course. They haven't gotten it. It's double A.
I went to high school with Mario. That's amazing.
See, you went to high school with Mario Lemieux?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and you're just telling me about this now. You know how much money that guy has in mind? All right, let's hop into it. So, Sean, just real quick, man, that house behind you is beautiful, dude. Is that one of your projects there? Huh?
Yeah, we're getting wrapping up. We've got the landscaping going on. We're doing all the grading today. But that right now, that house is at one air change, and hopefully we'll see what is tightened up with the drywall. But we made some improvements, but we'll see how airtight this thing is. But it's coming together.
Sean, I realized why it's at one air change. That window's open behind you. Just close the window. You'll be fine.
Yes, well, the really nice Euroline sliding doors. We'll make sure they're all tightened up when we do that. The red door truth. It's coming up.
If you're around, join us at the end, Sean. Good luck getting back to work, and we're going to jump in with Chris, brother.
Sounds good. Great
stuff. Appreciate you,
Enjoy.
Sean. All right, Chris, let's hop into it, man. We want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will call your mother, brother, sister, whoever's available, and bring them on the show, because Mark likes to embarrass you, and he'll bring his mother on too. But you only have 2 minutes to do it, so the floor is yours. Go for it, man. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you.
2 minutes. All right. I grew up in the Okanagan, a small town called Penticton. Best part of Penticton, it's got lakes on both sides of it. It's now turned into Napa North, definitely a wine country. Went to school there, lots of fun growing up. Ended up going to UVic, University of Victoria, degree in economics. Was a lumber broker, of all things, for a number of years. Traded lumber all over North America, started to trade lumber worldwide. Trading lumber is all about logistics, moving material around. Figured out I didn't love cutting down trees and sending them to China for making Walmart picture frames. So I ended up becoming I actually have a CMA. So I'm a certified managerial accountant, CPA, with that designation, and then somehow decided to get into construction about 10, 12 years ago. I kind of, certain days I curse it. Other days, when there's days like Sean's showing you, when you're on completion or getting big wins, there's nothing like it. So I've been in the construction industry for 10, 12 years. I am a part of a company called BCollective. We got 4 partners. We brought together a group of like-minded builders to push the scale, push the envelope. What BCollective has allowed me to do is not just focus on the construction site. So I barely go to site anymore. I'm allowed to innovate and push the envelope and see where we can go. That led us into BOSS. We wrote a grant for the BC government, our provincial government here in BC, and we were selected or effective in our grant writing skills and received a pretty good chunk of change to develop BOSS, Building Offsite Sustainable Systems. The idea is it's an open source, free to everybody. Let's build the market together. Let's collaborate. Let's pull it together kind of system. It's supposed to have a whole bunch of innovation in it. I think the innovation is actually in the process, that word collaboration and communication, bringing a whole bunch of people together. Where's my time at?
You're good.
You're good. You got another 35 minutes.
35 minutes. Okay.
No. So, the passion starts everywhere, right? And we talk about this all the time on the show. I hate to repeat myself all the time, but we find most people in this industry that are doing what they do and actually love what they do it because somewhere, somehow they had a change of heart. That's kind of what I'm hearing from your end. Something just clicked, right?
It's funny. I was reflecting with my parents were down for the weekend, and we got into some conversation. A friend of mine just became a cop. And we're talking about he gets to retire a little bit earlier and gets his pension. And I said, yeah, I don't have a pension. I'm not making enough money to live right now. But I get up and do something I love every day. And I don't need to retire when I'm 65. I'll happily work as long as I can. Because right now I get up and do something I enjoy, which that rolls back to passion.
You know what? It absolutely does roll back to passion. I just don't know how you and Mark keep all your hair. I'm losing mine, and I'm passionate.
He's got the joy of the fresh air of the Okanagan, right? So I tell you, I did not know your lumber trading background. And to me, it's one of the benefits of surprise conversation, right? There's so many things that you do that I look towards and we discuss. And I was surprised today. And normally I like to do the surprising. So it's really great to get the surprise today. And that really helps complete a circle for me of some of your talents. And I tell you, I'm also a fan of names. And when you rolled out the boss system, I was like, okay, winner, that's it. And we're always looking for the best name, right? The best idea out there, because our industry is confusing acronyms. You came out with the best name.
So the best part is it originally was OBS, like offsite building systems. And we were like, that's, I think the grant application was written as like that. And everyone's like, that's a terrible name. Like, why are you doing another terrible acronym? And it was Jeff that works in my office. He actually used to work. I got introduced to Jeff through Sean Saintamore to just really connect the dots. And he's like, what if we just change a little bit and go with boss? And it really worked. And so that's how those things get born. Just kind of out of dumb luck.
It's awesome. Yeah. I was at a technology meeting on Wednesday, and the first booth I went to, they had boss, and they're from the different side of tech. And I walked up to him and I said, excuse me, sir, you're not really boss. I know the real boss. And I think he's actually watching the show today. So, hey, brother. Well, so Dave, we get to dive into one of the things you love.
Right? Oh, no, that's a lot of different things.
So in the area of construction, there's niches, and they shouldn't be niches, but they currently are. And we have building science as a niche. Passive house is collectively with that performance aspect, and offsite construction. Chris, you found a way to kind of marry these and deliver that performance. The table is yours. I'm turning my mic off for the rest of the show.
I think so. As I mentioned, I'm an accountant, and a part of it comes from an account. I'm playing with the numbers and I'm looking for efficiency. And as Sean mentioned, I've been a part of a lot of passive house projects, and I did dip my toe into passive house. And like so many people, I've heard this story numerous times, is I got introduced to it pretty early in my career. I didn't have a lot of knowledge in construction, if I'm going to be honest. And I spent like the next 3 nights till 4 a.m. just devouring information on everything I could about passive house. I signed up for every course. Mm-hmm. To be honest, within a year, I was on the board of Passive House Canada, which definitely changes my perspective. And I have a very interesting. I got on the board because I needed financial help, and I'm glad to say I think I've helped them financially over the last few years. But it changed the table for me. Is all of a sudden I wasn't the guy. I was the guy in the room everyone wanted to come talk to, which was pretty interesting and pretty fun. And it gave me access to some incredible minds very quickly in that process. And so that's where I think the passive house bug really hit. Combining that at one of those passive house conferences, I sat down in an unassuming presentation with what I will fondly call a hippie. And Chris Magwood absolutely hit it out of the park. Probably 7 years ago. I've never seen a room change. Like, it was awesome. It was like, and so I think that's this embodied carbon conversation that he really nailed it. He doesn't downplay the importance of operational efficiencies within passive house, but material choice matters. All the work we've done, all the science, all the numbers that I've explored over the last 3-4 years, materials matter. The choices we make matter. It's an impact that we have today. Operational is more of a long-term perspective. It stacks on top of each other. We don't want to lock in those carbon bombs. So it's still very important. Those materials matter. So I started building passive houses, and I find they're really complicated. They're hard.
The truth. Finally, someone tells the truth.
They're annoying. They're different. They're complicated. Every single person on site, you've got to spend 20 minutes educating them on air barriers and thermal bridging and don't do this, do this. It's complicated. I've been on, I think my line used to be, I've been a part of 7 or 8 of them, and I think it's much more than that now. And I've kind of lost count, but I've been on enough passive projects, and literally the first 10 I did, different window assembly, different detail, different wall system. Everybody's trying to come up with the perfect silver spoon. And by the way, I don't have the perfect spoon in Boss, but what I want, my words of the day now are, we need to standardize and repeat. Standardize and repeat is get some consistency in this, because it's just, the learning curve is really complicated. It's complicated on a passive, it's on a custom house, on any new building. It's a new puzzle. It's already really complicated. Building science, building code, different municipalities, different zonings, all these pieces. The elements that are going into our buildings, it's complicated. We're stuck in time things. So that's led me to where you can find that is offsite construction, manufacturing. Where can we control as many variables as possible and keep it consistent and same? Like, where is that Henry Ford factory line pumping out something? We're starting to see it a lot more in our construction in the buildings in BC, and I'm everywhere within the open panel. And I think open panel construction is amazing. It's great. It's got a lot of place.
So real quick, Chris, you say open panel. So I heard did I hear that right? The open panel?
Yeah, so, go ahead.
With open panel, so some folks have no idea what that means. And then can you also state whether that's open exterior or open interior?
Typically what we're seeing is an open panel is essentially stick framed wood with sheathing on. So it makes up a wall. Typically we're seeing it open to the inside. So it's ready to receive the mechanical requirements in that place. The other side of it would be the opposite of open. It's closed. So a closed panel is going to have more membranes and insulation in place. Typically, it's not going to give you access to mechanicals in that space. So you got to pre-think it. What I'm seeing is a fairly consistent trend. In BC, we've got the step code, passive house, building better. We're increasing our R value. If you're going to do that with good materials, you're getting thicker walls. Thick walls are sexy. Those thick walls don't lend themselves well to open framing. You're just complicating the issue. So that's where, once we're getting into these higher level R values, thicker walls, let's explore a different system or a different approach. And that's where I think the strength of closed panel is.
Take away the silver spoon and put a fork in the road. Let's cut it up.
Yeah. Well, and listen, if anybody really wants to understand closed panel, open panel systems, modular, volumetric, I had the link below. Just go to our YouTube channel. We got plenty of that. And we just came back from London where we were on several panelized job sites, closed panel. And that's a whole different ballgame. The material and the way they build just, I feel weak when I come home because I got so overpowered by the quality. Just to become a carpenter, it's 4 years of school straight and math and everything. So, but
I thought it was a lifetime journey. I could have got done in 4 years.
Well, I tell you what, I'd be willing to bet these kids that when you see some of our videos from the carpenter trade school we went to, I'd be willing to bet these kids that come out would teach most master carpenters a whole lot.
Awesome.
That's a matter of fact, because who really certifies a master carpenter, right? These kids are the real deal. It's complicated.
I think it's on your great uncle's neighbor's deathbed. He passes that torch and then you take it. You're like, oh, I'm the master now.
Right. There is that. But, so you're absolutely right, Chris. We talk about this all the time, manufacturing, building systems, whether, we want to call it industrialized construction, panelized, whatever the case is, it does lend itself to that step and repeat process. Now, the caveat that everybody's going to argue is, well, cars, there's only 30 models of the cars built on 3 chassis and everybody wants something custom like what Sean's working on, ... But we are starting to see the technology now come about to where we can get a lot more bespoke products in a quicker manner, because production isn't about quality. It's about line spots. Typically they work on the quality, but as soon as the line spot slows up, it's like any other manufacturer and they speed up those lines, right? Because they got to make production quotas to cover their overhead. but now that's the two technologies are starting to come together. And I think this is where we're going to see the real value of offsite, construction move forward now. And you're right. Listen, all these places in Switzerland we went to, they are going to the, meeting. One was the Swiss Passive House standard, which is super high. They're using panelized construction. So there's some hard, true facts that if they're doing it over there and their building codes are really stringent, it obviously is working somewhere.
Yeah, they got like 50 years on us.
I think the other thing that I'm seeing is, I think it's a consumer expectation. I think I can use the word form factor, which is the outside surface of a building.
Mm-hmm.
So in our practice, we're a design build firm. So we're doing concept to completion is a big part of it, and a couple other areas. We don't even consider ourselves a builder anymore. We're more like an innovation company. But the simple box is coming back. Tree Hugger Lloyd Alter's got a couple of really good articles about this simple form factor and the type of buildings we're building. So I'm a big proponent. I'm a single family builder that I'm recovering. I'm trying to get over it. I'm trying to get through that, and I want to do more multi. Let's do duplexes. Let's get, like, zoning has a huge amount of impact. If we're doing this for climate change and sustainability, let's put more people in our buildings. It's simple. The effect it does to embodied carbon and operating carbon and all these quotas that we're trying to meet is really significant. So smart density, not pushing high rises, but smart density makes a really impressive difference. The other thing I think is our building shapes. Our expectations of custom is unique, and I love those. Don't get me wrong. There's a place for what was behind Sean. I've got a whole history of building those, but it's time to move forward. I would also suggest that what we're finding is we can make a building very unique with other attributes. The other part of it, when you actually look at a building, most buildings have a kitchen. They're gonna have a bathroom. They're gonna have some living space and some dining space, and then they're gonna have bedrooms. They're typically square, with different undulations of rectangles and squares connected to it. But we're talking about a pretty simple shape in there. Like, it's actually already pretty standardized. And I think the idea of customization, like cars is a good example, is you were never going to go to a car dealership and say, hey, I need a custom car. Can I get 4 rows of seating instead of 3? Because you know what? I need that 4th row to stretch my feet out. Like, it just wouldn't it'd be ridiculous. You would never go there. And so, but in houses, we're doing that. And then we're fighting this affordability piece. We know that we're some of the largest climate contributors out there. And we're still, no problem. We'll build you a car with 4th rows. Here's the price tag. It's a lot, by the way, but here it is. So I think
and we'll build it in your driveway.
And we'll build it in our driveway. That's a good, cue video.
Yeah. You want to do it? You ready, Dave?
Let's do it. You ready?
Okay, pay attention, folks.
You've seen the news. It's not getting any better. And if we don't take action, it's going to get worse. We know you have to build to take shelter. But why is it that the way we build today, the way we built 100 years ago? No one expects their car to arrive in pieces on the front lawn, get exposed to dust, rain, wind or snow, the odd flood or two, extreme temperature fluctuations, and get put together on their lawn. Yet that's exactly how our houses are built. And even when they're built, you pay a fortune to have them heated or cooled. Not to mention, they might not be keeping you healthy. This can't be the way forward. And it doesn't have to be. With building offsite sustainable systems, BOSS, this is a different way towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. From buildings to reducing costs and timelines, building healthier homes, healthier communities, and ultimately changing the built landscape of our region. But this goal isn't going to just happen. We need to think differently. When we are thinking differently, we'll be ready to design differently, adopt a different method, even innovate together, and build a better future. This isn't about changing the news cycle. And no, it won't happen today, and it won't happen tomorrow. But if we keep doing what we can every day, it will add up into something better. Let's dive in together.
Yeah, so very, very cool video for sure. And and it says everything it needs to say. So how long has BOSS been around? Like I've seen it, but when was the inception of BOSS, building offsite sustainable systems?
Kind of in it was with that grant, with the Clean BC grant, it kind of kicked off. So it's I think a year and a half, 2 years maybe.
Yeah, sure.
It's also not like in BOSS. But I need to like in a very blunt place, I need to detach BOSS from BCollective. It's not intended to be a profit-making enterprise for BCollective, to be just blatantly clear. It's intended to be open source. It's got another round of funding coming up that I think if I still, as Dave pointed out, I still have my hair, it's not going too gray, I might try and do another round of it. It's a lot of work. And it needs to go into sort of a more of a not-for-profit or an associated place that's pushing this level of standardization. And there's a number of pieces of that. It was because the initial funding came in BC. It was focused within the BC region. Each puzzle in each region is different. There isn't a super spoon that's going to push us that we can just sort of magically take and it's going to work across North America. So I think it's about creating a solution that works. I think there's a process that it was really good. And we went through an integrated design process. So we put together a very solid engineer, Aspect Engineers. We put together a Voke with our envelope engineers, McCore Architecture, and Passilos Canada was involved. We put together a decent team to really go through the process and pragmatically figure out what we can do to reach a system that works. So we had a number of there was backwards and forwards, and I had, it's like any project, you start and you lay out all these objectives and KPIs and you hit like 60% of them in truth, and you think designing a component is going to be easy. The reality is we're still designing the component. It hasn't stopped. It's not going to stop. And so we ended up with BOSS with that specific program. We developed 2 sample houses that I should have sent you the access to more of that, but
that's you're coming back. Don't worry, you're not getting away from us, that Chris.
I tell you,
from us.
Yeah. Well, I think go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say you're coming back, Chris. There's more to dive in, so not to worry there.
Yeah, there's a ton of, so we've done it. What we did in the BOSS program was we developed a component. It's being produced. The other part of innovation, which you kind of get slapped in the face really quick when you try to put it into the real world, is you need somebody to produce it. And the scale of construction's big. It's not, we're not dealing with like a little widget that you can go get a 3D printer to pump out. And so designing components, it needed, I'm not a producer. I might become one in the future, but it's not going to be of that big of scale. And the only reason I want to become a producer, my line these days is I want to become a producer, more like starting a nightclub with a bunch of buddies so that I can get to the front of the lineup, VIP service, get a fancy table and a bottle of champagne when I show up. But I don't want to actually really own a nightclub. I just want really good service. And that's nothing to take away from our existing producers. In BC, we have 5 really good producers. But they've got their own business. They've got what they're doing. They're in regional locations we've come to the conclusion within those producers that they're working on a different puzzle. The R value requirements to meet the Passive House standard is different. The seismic requirements, like we're playing on the San Andreas Fault here in Victoria and Vancouver. Victoria is even further extreme, but in Vancouver, where we kind of focused, we're a seismic zone 4, climate zone 4. So to marry that to the guys in the east are not in the east, but in the eastern BC. Like Collective Carpentry, great company, love them. Done a ton of work with them. But we've come to the conclusion that their primary wall system has a higher R value than what we need. In Vancouver, when every inch matters because the property value is extreme, I can't give that up just for the higher R value. I need to make it efficient. So that's what I think has been a really big learning, not big learning curve, but it's been a good lesson learned. There isn't one size that fits all, but the process that we've gone through with IDP, open source, sharing, the great conversations that it's created, the ability of like the Dave Cooper Lives, Mark, all these different shows, we are connecting I had a conversation yesterday with a great company in the UK, to Dave's point in the travel. We are literally doing businesses with companies all across Europe and the UK now in the support of this, because it's just a Zoom call. I do most of my Zoom calls with most of my company. So it's just a different link. You got to get up a little earlier sometimes.
Especially you. I mean, Dave's lucky. He's got the East Coast time.
The East Coast,
right?
Yeah.
Like at 4 a.m., I get the European things, and I was like, oh, like that's the latest they're willing to go because of their day. So it's totally right. It's a global connectivity when it comes to performance.
Yeah. And it's been, I think, like, we're all globally, we're trying to find a solution here, but there's different solutions. And I think one of the biggest ones, when we talk about materials and getting a little building sciencey here, insulation materials is going to be a big factor. The sheer volume, when we double or triple the size of our walls, we don't need to structurally triple our wall. Structurally, we're going to still be fine. But we are doubling our R value in our insulation, and the supply chain behind that for low embodied carbon materials is really important.
Yep.
It's going to be a big factor of how we do that, how we fill those cavities. Rigid, loose. I hope to see carbon storing. Eco Cocoon straw is awesome, following it very closely. Hopefully the hemp guys can get their testing in play real soon. I think it's got some real space. Hemp in that Colorado, that like where it's grown, where it's currently be grown, makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
I was talking to someone in Costa Rica a little while ago, and they've got a ton of bamboo. It makes sense to use bamboo there. In BC, hopefully we get a little bit of our wood fiber organized and rolling out some wood fiber things. These are regional solutions that make a lot of sense.
I think British Columbia and on the Eastern Front, Maine, wood fiber facilities, and I would pick 2 other parts in North America, but we need at least 4 facilities to match the, there's like what, 26 in Germany at least. It's crazy, and North America's kind of big, folks.
North America, we have a big wood industry. We use a lot of wood.
The cellulose people are getting the work they're getting now, but I'm really hopeful for that wood fiber, and I'm glad you brought that up as well as the other natural materials, Chris.
I mean, cellulose is an interesting one. It's not perfect, but it's probably it's like politics. It's the one you pick. It's the least bad. It's the least worst one. So I think cellulose. But I've been working with some of the major suppliers on that too. And when you get into the volume that you need, we as a society, we don't use as much newsprint. So their raw material source is a lot limited. Their best supply source is actually those egg cartons, like those kind of compressed paper egg cartons. They've got a problem. Like, we can't all choose cellulose. There's just not enough raw material to support that. So there needs to be these regionalized solutions and figure out the waste streams. There are agricultural waste streams in play that I think, if I had the capital and funds, would be doing a lot more research on where that is going. But I think the big one to play with is insulation. It's going to be the interesting innovation coming down the pipe. Yeah,
we have, like, people don't think about it that way, but the fiberglass, the cellulose, the mineral wools, they're in locations for a reason, and those areas, those machines don't shut off, right? In fact, you don't want those machines to shut off. But now, when you take the other areas that have the area for production in fields, right, to produce the materials in fields, they're going to be taking away that regionality of those other ones. It's going to be an interesting fight. Like, you thought Coke and Pepsi and Budweiser and Coors and Miller were fighting, or you pick the brands. There's going to be an interesting fight, and someone from that side of the fence will be playing in that field.
Yeah, 100%. We got a question came in from Bronwyn Berry. Good to see you, Bronwyn. Nice to have you here. For Chris, why do you think North America is so far behind the EU on both offsite and better material options? Ooh, there's a can of worms we can jump into.
This is a good can of worms. Hi, Bronwyn. Thanks for the question. Also, I'm going to note that you're right on your earlier comment. Passive house is hard the first time. The fourth and fifth time, it gets a lot easier. I think so. It's interesting. We had for my office, I was supposed to go, but I had like another kid. So instead of watching my baby, or I decided to watch my baby born instead of going to a European trip. But I sent Jeff from my office with a pretty good conglomerate of people through a number of factories in Europe. There's a different mindset in the investment of capital. And I think that's the biggest difference. So in North America, our financial capital systems are based on a fairly quick return. It's often our business plans are 5 years or 10 years, maybe 20, 30. We've got a few large hedge funds doing larger look plays. If you compare to Baufritz, which is one of the biggest leaders in Europe in what they're doing with offsite construction, talk about wood fiber and wood insulation. That they're on like fourth or fifth generation, I believe. So they've like got these 100-year outlooks, and they have no problem investing the large capital and not getting the return right away. They know they'll get it in the long run. So I think that's a big factor in North America. I think the other factor is the size that Dave mentioned. We are a very regionally diverse country and continent within North America that is holding back. What is required in Vancouver is different than what is required in other places. And so to set up the scale is very difficult. I also think we're on the very cusp of the big wave that's coming. So I had an interesting conversation with the sales manager for Weyerhaeuser for engineered wood products. The use of TGI, vertical TGIs and TGIs in different places other than floor systems is becoming more prevalent. So that's sort of like, is that on your radar? Do you got any specs? Have your engineers looked at it? Like what? And yes, they know about it. There's if you dig around, there's some literature. The best literature on it is from RDH and the effective R22 guide. That's very famous in Vancouver for.
Yep. Thank you, RDH.
Thank you, RDH. It's like Vancouver is 1% of the market, and it's tiny, and the high performance market is 0.0% of the market. So you've got we're still tadpoles in a big pond, and until those big companies start to recognize it and change, we're not there. They see it, they know it's coming, they're aware of it, and I think this is where policy is the government stick to sort of bash us along, and we're seeing it in Vancouver with their building code, and they pushed it along pretty far. We're seeing it in some of the other, and I know my regional areas a lot better than I know North America, but where we're seeing policy is where we're starting to see it, and once that pushes along and it forces the big guys to pay attention. I also think publicly with COVID, there's a different awareness to climate change. The conversation has changed in the last couple of years. Yeah. The funding has changed in the couple of years. In the United States, not to get political, but the government has changed. In Canada, we're seeing massive volumes of dollars being poured into this space. And so I think that's a real opportunity to make the change, to think differently and build it. So I'm hoping that comes through that.
The attitude of opportunity always comes from you. And, sometimes we get into these circles, be like, oh, things never change. And everyone's humdrum. The attitude of opportunity is the attitude for action. And you always embody it, Chris. I've seen you present so many times, and we've been waiting to do this together. And I remember when Dave and I were reviewing the dates, he's like, oh yeah, this is going to be a good one. This is going to be good. And here we go. It is.
I want to point out, I really appreciate, I'm reading the comments too. Bronwyn is very much on point. And to be clear with Boss is designed to do exactly what Bronwyn is saying. We don't need big, fancy 100-year, $1 million Wyman lines on the get-go. We've locally been talking about it with a number of manufacturing suppliers. We need to play small ball first. Let's get some base hits. Base hits is a roof, and a butterfly table, some real simple aspects, and get going with it and do it well, do it efficient. It doesn't have to be a Katera-like enterprise.
We got a hockey guy
let me
talking
add
about
to this
base
here.
hits. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to add to that, right? So I think you're absolutely right. I don't think that you have to jump in with both feet, fully automated, ... Brunen's very, very accurate in that. We've been playing small ball for the last 50 years, quite honestly, right? And that's how most of the small ball players are already playing without the efficiencies, without the technology. I do think you got to start like what you're doing with your technology. That's going to be a game changer for some of these factories that want to start. But there's a lot of these technologies starting to pop up, right? How do we grasp on and make it the standard, right? That's the hard part with this. Or will there not be a standard? But I think the biggest thing holding us back in this industry is the consumer. We don't have a good marketing plan. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's better for them, because we're getting beat down by all the big players out there with their marketing plans. We don't really have a voice out there to make a mass impact. And I think we need to work on both of those. But that's all I do is travel the country and the world, going to all these factories. And Chris, Bronan, you're absolutely right. The first step is incremental automation. Take it simple. Use some cranes. Use some some scissor tables or whatever else you have, and then grow your line into it versus doing the Autovol approach, which is 110 million in, right?
Yeah.
So I think it also, the accountant in me and the realist in me and in my actual business, it comes down to dollars. The consumer is driven. I hate to say this, 90% of the consumers are driven by their wallet.
Yep.
And what we're going to see within my region, and I think I would encourage us for all regions to push, and I hate to say policy over and over again, but now that policy is dictating thicker walls, so it's no longer a choice. You have to code meet a R40 wall, which is coming down the pipe. Stick frame, other options are very expensive. So my entire business model is to watch the code progress and a whole whack of builders not know how to build anymore and be forced to build that complicated passive house and say, here's a really easy solution. Oh, by the way, it's going to save you money. And so it's a win-win in that place. So I think and I know that we're very fortunate with a progressive municipal policy place right now. And that's what we're going to take advantage of and lean into. And I think that's a really critical point is once it becomes the norm, then that's where factories come into play. And so in Europe, that policy, the code is already there. That's why they're well in play. And the consumer, I don't know, Steve Jobs, the consumer didn't want a phone that could play music, take cameras, video chat with their grandma when the iPhone and all those things were first introduced. So there's an element, this is like, yes, I 100% agree with you, Dave. We do need more consumer education and more, but I don't know if a consumer really cares where their house got built, as long as it's built with confidence, with comfort. If they're comfort in it and they get the look and feel they want.
Sure.
Most consumers I'm dealing with are caring more about their countertops than what's inside their walls.
Well, I agree with you on that for sure. But again, if they don't know it exists, they're never going to ask for it. We're not going to grow like we need to grow. Secondly, in Canada and Europe, the government has stepped up to the plate and put some of these codes in. One of our problems, and I just had this whole conversation with Catalyst Construction overseas, right? We were over in Switzerland together. And we have a voice at the table all of a sudden. NAHB, Greg Ugaldi's watching, right? But there's this conflict between well, they don't accept our code and everything's about minimum. And my argument is, at least for in the United States, is if we don't have a seat at the table, our voices don't get heard. The bigger players, the 9 or so that pretty much control the housing market. And by the way, supply and demand's good. Having a $7 million house shortage is good for business. We're not going to change those codes to where it's going to matter, because our government is not going to be the one that says you. We need to do it this way. England did it, with the MMC. And I think we need to take a different approach. And my approach is we need to see at the table, and we need the government to lead the way and show better building practices. For once, come in on budget, save the taxpayer some money. And then I think other people at that point will then follow, and you'll see people and the consumer follow as well. So it's a hot topic, you know, because it's much different in Canada and Europe than it is here in the States.
I'll put myself on the record, and hopefully this is recording. I sent a pretty scathing email to my home builders association, which I pay dues into, and they're at the national level are fighting the progression of there's literally an email that was sent out from this one came from the provincial, but it's coming from national, that's saying they're condoning Victoria for accelerating the step code. So Victoria's put through they call the climate emergency. They've said we want zero carbon buildings by 2025, 5 years faster than what was decided 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And
I thought it was 2032.
Association is saying the industry's not ready. Oh my God, this is going to cause a catastrophe, blah, blah, blah. I think they're crazy. I think we can educate those people. We can't, like, it is there. It's what they're doing is protecting the developer and his bottom line.
Yep.
It's money. It's about money and protecting that. And that's where I really struggle. And yes, and I don't think the industry, if you move it 5 years or wait, construction industry is notoriously slow. There's a whole bunch of carrots out there to incentivize, to bring that forward. And incentives do work for the early adopter, but the big bulk in the middle, that second and third and fourth wave, they need the stick, and they're not going to change until the stick hits them on the butt.
I think I also want to highlight something that echoes that is sometimes we don't know how good we're doing things. So in the Midwest, 6 years ago, they took the top 6 tract builders and they randomly tested their homes for air tightness. Every single one of the homes tested by all of those tract builders that are not trained in performance or building science or anything of the like, they were all under 3 ACH. All of the homes. Now, the fight at the time, right, because we know they're progressional changes, was to have it at 5 ACH. Yeah. But when the information was shared that, hey, look, your top builders out there, by accident, right, happy accident, are getting below 3. And part of that is because when they work on the other projects and they get these incredible materials that we have today, that we're able to complete airtight building in ways that we weren't before, right? We didn't have those measures. So it's pretty awesome when we know the examples are there and we communicate them, and then we should reward them so we could keep on progressing that way. I just love it.
I mean, tract builders are the other part of what that is they're doing the same puzzle over and over again. So you think of the workers, the guys taping, the actual action happening on site. I mean, I feel for them because they got to do that 300 times or whatever that community is requesting. Yep. It's interesting. I used to
best Tyvek run in the country, right? They're incredible. I can't wrap a
super fast. They're super tight. I mean, once those builders start to see the value in it, or whether or not they're forced, some will be forced, some will go, oh wait, the consumer's screaming for climate friendly things. Here's the passive standard. I'm going to adopt this because I can sell it for 5% more, and it only costs me 3% more to build, and I got a 2% return on my bottom line, and wow, I'm winning. That is like those guys have the biggest opportunity. When I was a lumber broker, I sold components to Centex Homes in Texas. I built them in BC, shipped them on rail cars, and their entire, like, talking to the top brass of, they were at the time one of the top 5 builders in the US. Standardized. They were getting to the point, can we, in all of our factories, can we buy the same faucet? Because then it's the easiest warranty, it's the easiest process. And that's just an example. But those guys they already have factories. They're already doing open wall panels. They already own all the truss factories.
Yep.
You talk about vertical integration and changing the game.
Bingo.
And those are the ones that, but it does, like, and they're a for-profit organization. They're probably on the stock, like it's about returns. So the money needs to make sense. And that, getting back to Dave, I wholeheartedly agree. Once the consumer demands it, all like throughout, or you get a premium. I mean, this is, I'm scared to suggest this, but I do think an energy rating system on homes, which they're starting to introduce in the UK, it does start to make more and more sense for that consumer. So those terrible houses that are going to be carbon bombs for the future, they're going to get hit with higher costs anyways,
Yep.
and that will change them. But on that real estate transaction, if we know what it is, where the energy load is, then that makes a lot of sense. The conversation, like the other like big part of this conversation that I always like to do in the last minute of a live broadcast is drop a huge bomb.
Boom.
Retrofit. Yes. We need to be doing retrofit. I love new build. It's fun, exciting. It's a blank canvas, but retrofit is the way we're getting out of this. If a building houses a lot of people, retrofit it. My line is if it doesn't house a lot of people or families, knock it over, build one that does house a lot of families really well. That's going to be like, I think that's the future is we do need to play in the retrofit place.
The only thing I'll say is don't knock it over, deconstruct it.
Fair. I only deconstruct. You're right.
Let's use something, right? Let's use something in there.
Yeah, we're on a clean demo. I mean, our policies are such that we're only clean demo or deconstructing, and the difference is 3 times. It's once we're at that place, it can be really tidy in what our climate change is.
Yeah. You know, I'm following some of the comments here and the back and forth with everybody. And one of the things that isn't coming up with the bigger players that we have to really keep in mind that have a ton of influence is the unions, especially on these big projects across the country. And I do know, working with some of the bigger players out there, I'll give you an example. Let's say in California, they switched to doing some sort of closed wall system or modular, right? Well, if the unions that didn't get because now that's not union work, well, the East Coast and Midwest unions start finding that out, and their carpenter unions start finding out. There's a bit of a cat and mouse thing going here. It's really super, super complicated, this whole thing. However, the good news is there are some unions now that are working on modular and panelized setting techniques, which is great. But, you know, Chris, I think this isn't for another time talking about the unions and the big players and how we make the change. And I do think it's coming. I think it's finally here to really start pushing forward. I just believe that, you know, all the people in the audience that are listening to you, myself, what you're doing that nobody else has done is bringing the two together, right? You're bringing passive house and offsite construction together in a real conversation, and you're highly respected, right? Now, if we could get all these people to come and sit at the table where the policies are made and we have a bigger voice, then we can collectively grow together. But that's, you know, and I think it'll happen faster. And I love what you're doing, and I appreciate you and I commend you for it. But I do think in this country, from what I'm seeing, it's still a tall road, and I don't see the government pushing it. Not right away. A little bit at a time. They're doing it a little bit at a time, but it could be much quicker.
Municipalities will adopt it before the big government, right? And you'll get the copy and paste.
You know what? I think in that policy conversation, and I brought it, is, Mark, you nailed it. I'm paying way more attention, and I'm not running for politics, but I'm paying way more attention to municipal politics. I'm helping write amendments to council bills and those sort of things. It's very easy to manipulate's the wrong term, but positively manipulate your local government if you get involved. It's really like the national stuff and even the state stuff or provincial is much more complicated. But the stuff in our own backyards, I think there is, and that's where we proliferate this message of passive house, of offsite construction, of building better. And I think most rational people with a decent argument put in front of them get it quite quickly. And you don't want a car assembled on your house. You don't want a 5-seater custom market this way more. I think people will start to understand that in consumers, and it will change over. It's been a long fight. There's been a lot of people, Bronwyn being one of them. There's a number of people in that I work closely with on the board of Passive House Canada that have been in this fight for decades. And it's still a tall road. It's not there. We're still a spec. But that spec is getting stronger and stronger. And it's collaboration and communication.
I want to compliment you on the video, whether you're a professional or a consumer or a supplier, or whatever you're involved in the AEC space. That video is not common for our industry. So it lands in a different way. It hits that different way. And also from a branding perspective, you guys are boss. So, you know,
You're the boss.
There's many people that hide behind the curtain. They have this, and this is behind the curtain, and this is behind the curtain. And you put it all out there, and you put it for the marketplace and all those levels. Chris, Boss System, if you guys aren't connected with them, wake up, put your head in a bucket of ice, and make sure you say hello to Chris.
Well, let's not even stop there. I think Boss System is going to be on the Dave Cooper Live Product Spotlight Show. We need to dive in just to that system.
Yeah, we haven't got into the slide. We haven't got into the details.
We've been on an hour now. I know. Well, you know what? We set it up. What are you doing Wednesday? We'll see you Wednesday, 1:00. So just a quick couple of shout outs. Haven't been able to get to everybody real quick, but we got Henry Mickelberg out there. What's happening, Henry? Sorry. Just getting to that. Bronwyn was our winner for the most comments, I think, today. Robbie Schwartz, thank you guys very much. Dana Taylor. Did I miss anybody here? Mark Buzz is always in the house. John Magnan. So
I want to just echo what Chris said and thank Passive House Canada, right? When there was an opportunity for people to join an association and to put yourself forward. Hey, Luis, there you go. That is not to sit on a board and tell people you're on a board. That's to get involved with the board and use your gifts to move their needle. And when you move their needle, your needle spins. And you've done it. You've set the example. I love, for the most part, it's volunteering. So get out there, support your associations. They need you.
I mean, I bashed on the Home Builder Association a bunch there. It just needs people that are talking about this in those circles, and there are a lot of people in those circles pushing those needles, and that's what is needed.
Well, and that's exactly it. The more people that are at the table of these bigger organizations like the HBAs that are tied to the larger organization, that's how we win. We got to stop being mad at each other, so to speak.
We just had the former president of the Canadian Home Builders, right? We all know him. Larry Clay was just on, and the storytelling he does is great. Greg Ugaldi, I tip my hat to you. I think you missed maybe 2 shows in 2.5 years.
Yeah, right? How dare you?
Leadership. Action with Boss. Connect with Chris. And Dave, you got a show tomorrow. I do. But let's this is a good time to put that up there. Greg Ugaldi, I want to make sure that everybody understands that Greg is the past chair, the head guy at the National Association of Home Builders. Updates the president, updates Secretary of Housing. He does follow our show. They are listening. And I sit on some subcommittees now at the NAHB. Now is the time for us to come together. It's not going to be a quick toe, but if people just start getting involved and stop with they don't ever make changes comments, and I heard a lot of that in Switzerland, that's the only way we're really going to drive the change that's good for all of us collectively if we're at the table and our voices can be heard. So if you don't know Greg Ugaldi, reach out to him. He's actually a super, super great person. He believes in all of this. But he's just one guy in the second largest lobbying firm in the country. Number two. He's just number
2. All right, that's a wrap. Let's bring Sean back in. He's been sitting there patiently waiting for me to shut my yap. What's happening, Sean?
All good, gentlemen. Well, hey, just to give you an idea, 5 years to almost a day, Chris and I were in this location hanging out with Passive House Canada, setting up the Icebox Challenge here in Vancouver. And, 5 years later, Chris and I and the Passive House community has grown, high performance has grown here in BC and Vancouver, and little things you do, they have ripples. And Boss is creating big ripples in the industry right now, and Chris is doing a great job with him and his team. And again, I'm glad to call him a friend.
I heard a rumor, Sean, that the ice is still together in the Passive House, but the ice from the co-build house has evaporated into the stratosphere.
Yeah, it's trying to green the grass, but even though there wasn't enough water for it, but buddy.
Cool. Well, Sean, appreciate the intro all the time, man, and appreciate you showing us around Canada. Everywhere as you at is somewhere is different for me, so I love it.
Yeah, that's a great show.
Right. Chris, don't go anywhere. We'll come back to you for a wrap up after the outro. Everybody else out there, have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow morning with Coffee with Dave for a quick update. We got a lot of great things happening. We're hitting the road again, so stay tuned. Sean, awesome dude. Chris, don't go anywhere. Mark, we'll see you in a minute. Everybody else, enjoy your weekend. Make sure you spend some time with your family and hug your kids if you got them. I'm Dave Cooper. That's Mark Willie, Chris, and Sean. See ya.
Thanks.